Hello and welcome to a mini lecture on the pelvis. The pelvis is your hip region, which is made up of your pelvic bones. We could say that's your ilium, your ischium, and your pubis. You can also say that it is the foundation or the socket for your femur bones, your leg bones. So, therefore, you can imagine that any walking, running, or jumping mechanism or movement that you do, the mechanics of that weight or shock going up through your leg will then be distributed through the pelvic region, through your gluteal muscles, through your hip rotator muscles, your hip flexors, and then your joints, such as the big one, your sacroiliac joint. So your sacroiliac joint is made up of the sacrum, that part of the lower spinal structure, as well as the coccyx structure or the tailbone that hangs off the very bottom. And then that comes up and goes into where the ilium, or the rounded part of your hip, just on the top there, where my finger is pointing on the picture. This joint is formed of those ilium bones, and they glide against the sacrum, like so. So this provides for shock absorption. It provides for tilting of the hips, for example, in hip flexion or hip extension. When we do a standing phase of the back squat, we will do a hip extension. So therefore, with this rolling mechanism of these two bones, or the gliding mechanism, if we don't have a proper muscular structure there through our gluteal muscles and our rotators and our hip flexors, then we will have too much pressure going through this joint, causing a shearing effect, which therefore leads to pain. Within the hips itself, we have the small part of the pubis right in the middle, underneath, right there. This is made up of cartilage, where the two hip bones come together at the front, and this will be, during pregnancy, for example, allowed to stretch and open, or during a one-sided hip flexion, for example, sprinting, it will allow for a slight movement. This will allow for one hip bone or one side of the hips to rotate anteriorly or forward, while the other one rotates slightly backwards. Now, there isn't a lot of movement here, but the movement is very significant when it comes to absorbing the shock from the foot hitting the ground. And a dysfunction can be what we call anterior or posterior hip tilt. This dysfunction will then lead on to many complications within the spine, the nervous system, which controls the legs, and weight distribution through the lower back or even the abdomen itself. This region also supports our reproductive organs. And so you can imagine, just like with the abdomen, you can then have reproductive issues if we have a consistently dysfunctioning muscular system around our pelvis, which also includes the most vulnerable part for post-pregnancy, which is the pelvic floor. Or as we get older, we tend to see a lot of dysfunction in our pelvic floor, which will lead to incontinence and a number of other issues revolving around our genitalia. I hope this has clarified a number of things for the pelvic region. Thank you very much.